立法會主席
The President. Let's carry on with the motion debate on the policy address. The Council now proceeds to the fourth session. Members who wish to speak in this session, please press the Request to Speak button. The debate themes of this session are promote the integrated development of education, technology, and talents, enrich the housing ladder, labor support and protection, healthcare, social welfare, and social development. The policy areas covered in this session have been set out in the script for members' easy reference. Mr. Kenneth Leung. Thank you, President. This session focuses on the part about the integrated development of education, technology, and talent in the PA, as well as parts about livelihood issues. A lot of them have to do with youth development, so I'd like to give a response here. Young people are our future. To help them grow and develop, and we have to help them give full play to their potential. We have to help them leverage the advantages under one country, two systems. A lot of the chapters in the previous PAs have to do with youth development. This year, the part about young people has to do with patriotism, as well as broadening young people's horizons, as well as deepening international exchanges. Young people have to have a strong sense of patriotism and national identity. I've already raised this in the first session. Now I'll talk about broadening young people's horizons and deepening their international exchanges and cooperation. Paragraph 166 of the policy address talks about nurturing young people, providing internship opportunities for young people in different parts of the world. I support this. I suggest that apart from sending young people to international organizations such as the United Nations, we can also send them to, for example, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Boao Asian Forum, as well as other Asian Forum, to help them build the idea that we have the co-shared future. I think that by promoting international exchanges among young people, we can help them broaden their horizons. We can include different themes such as aerospace technology as well as military. 168 of the PA mentions about the youth post-hostel. This is an important platform for young people to have exchanges with each other. It provides good accommodation for young people, and in the coming 5 years, it will organize over 100 activities with cultural and sports elements. I think different policy bureaus can get involved. It can come up with different two-way exchange programs to give full play to the youth post-hostel. For example, there could be study tours to receive young people from outside Hong Kong, and HYAB can recruit young people to be guided tours to help them liaise with the rest of the world. So youth post-hostel will become an important landmark in Hong Kong. We're facing rapid changes in the economic landscape around the world, and we're seeing rapid development of the digital economy. We have to integrate the development of education, technology, and talent. This will be an important foundation for the future development of Hong Kong. There are parts in the PA about building Hong Kong into an international education hub. For example, there will be a task force on study in Hong Kong. It is going to roll out the scheme of city in hostels. I believe these will attract more young people from outside Hong Kong to study in the city. I think the government should speed up the development of the northern metropolis to enhance the capacity of campuses. There needs to be more teaching staff. Also, the government needs to enhance supporting measures for retaining talents. For example, there should be a removal of the restrictions on young people outside Hong Kong who study here to work here. This is to promote the development in Hong Kong, and we can then pull together professional talents. On nurturing local talents, I'm glad that the government is improving AI education in Hong Kong and is promoting VPET. This will promote different progression pathways for young people, and this will help them enhance their understanding of AI. On top of basic education, the government should focus on applied sciences. There should be training on talents to make use of AI. We need this kind of skilled talents to ensure that we can make a big stride in technological development. On promoting the recognition of DSE, there are measures to increase the number of international schools in Hong Kong, as well as relaxation on relevant restrictions. This will address the need for talent. I think primary and secondary education is definitely a highlight to retain talents. We should help international schools expand their campuses and provide accommodation and boarding facilities. There should be different kinds of subsidized primary and secondary schools to cater to the needs of different students. Helping young people move up the social ladder is our vision for young people. I think there should be a city scheme to help young people realize their visions and dreams. In this year's PA, there are many measures to provide room for young people's development. I'd like to talk about two other measures to show my recognition for PA. On housing, the government is giving another 2,000 dedicated quotas for young people to apply for the White Form Secondary Market Scheme. Our focus should be on helping young people to purchase homes and enrich their housing ladder. I think this can cater to young people's needs and help them form families and focus on their career. I support these measures. I hope in the future there could be a flat-for-flat scheme for young people so that they can move to bigger flats. There is an array of measures this year to promote childbearing. For example, the child allowance is increased and there is enhanced childcare services. Childbearing is a decision that has to be made by each young person. There are a number of measures that help young families to reduce their burden. I hope that there could be a continuation of these childbearing and pro-birth policies. This is the last time of this legislative session that we have a motion debate on the PA. Here I'd like to thank the SAR government for rolling out such superior policy addresses to help young people realize their dreams and future. I so submit. I support the motion. Reverend Peter Kuhn. The Chief Executive delivered his fourth policy address earlier. It is an abundant and rich PA that focuses on economy and livelihood. And the theme is deepening reforms for our people, leveraging our strengths for a brighter future. It is an innovative and forward-looking PA that responds to the needs of Hong Kong's future development. It has taken on board the various suggestions from different sectors in Hong Kong. I'd like to show my recognition to this PA. I'd like to take this opportunity to focus on issues that are top of mind of people. I'd like to first talk about public finance. We all know that we're facing a serious structural fiscal deficit. Our fiscal reserve has dropped to about $500 billion. This problem did not emerge overnight. It is a result of years of problems that we faced. This PA focuses on measures to boost economy and pursue development. How can we address public finance problems? It seems that the government has yet to give us a clear roadmap on this. Some voices say that we are facing a greater expenditure in healthcare and social welfare. In the coming 10 years or so, we will see an increasing expenditure in this regard. If we do not increase revenue and cut down costs, and we simply focus on boosting our economy, it's not going to help us revert the situation. I think the government needs to be bolder. and change its mindset to cut down on costs. We can focus on the civil service establishment. I'm not saying that we have to lower the pay of civil servants. We need a more flexible pay rise mechanism that is linked with the performance of civil servants to simplify the establishment. One of the problems with the civil service system is that everyone get pay rise every year. For those who perform well and those who perform poorly, oftentimes they get similar remuneration package. How can we boost the morale of civil service and enhance the work efficiency? There is the enhanced performance appraisal system for civil servants. The secretary mentioned that she will learn from the private sector and put in place a more rigorous appraisal system. Only those who exceed the standards and expectations will get a good rating, and those who underperform, they should not get automatic pay rise. This is going to revert the long-term culture of civil servants enjoying pay rise every year. However, there are hurdles to changing this culture. Civil servants have the mindset that they can be posted to different departments, so supervisors are reluctant to put negative comments in their appraisal reports in case they get revenge. I also heard that for some problematic staff, their superior will give them good rating in order to send them to other departments. Also, I was told by some civil servants that if the subordinates fail to meet their performance standards, there won't be a report to reflect this. This is because the procedure of filing report is complicated. So there needs to be a reform. Can we streamline the relevant evidence collection and reporting procedure? Also, the government should make use of technology, AI, and IoT to streamline work procedures, to reduce duplication of work efforts, and to reduce administrative costs. If the government can make a change to this deep-seated culture and problem, I believe we can improve our public finance. Otherwise, it will have an impact on our future generation. On the HOD accountability system, this is definitely a highlight of this year's PA. In the past, members of the public always say the government sticks to procedures. Whenever there are problems, the government only sticks to procedures without actually addressing the problems. With this accountability system, accountability will be extended from politically appointed officials to civil servants. This deserves our recognition. I'm worried that if we focus on accountability and punishment and neglect rewards, it might affect the morale of civil service. It might also encourage the culture of doing less means fewer mistakes. I think we need a carrot and stick approach. We have to reform the performance appraisal system. We cannot give good rating to every civil servant. Otherwise, this accountability system will just be superficial and we cannot revert the deep-seated culture and problem. Now I'd like to turn to the problem of unemployment. The overall unemployment rate stands at about 3.7%. Unemployment rate in the construction sector and the catering sector has increased to 7.2% and 6.4% respectively. Many people are confused. The government keeps saying that we are seeing an economic recovery, but how come the job market is doing so poorly? I think the recovered economy focuses on a few sectors such as finance and INT. Ordinary grassroots people as well as wage earners, they cannot benefit from the economic growth. We're seeing fewer low-skilled posts on the market. According to the PA, the government is going to review the ERB, and in the coming 2 to 3 years, it will increase expenditure for construction works. I think we are moving to the right direction, but we can be more precise and targeted in this regard. The government should, in a more targeted manner, promote the training of skilled workers, especially for the elderly care sector, as there is a shortage of manpower. It should also encourage enterprises to hire old-aged people by rolling out tax breaks for them. There should be a re-employment allowance scheme. We should also play the role as a gatekeeper to guard against an overwhelming number of imported labor. Now, on the problem of aging population,
we really need to deal with this issue. An aging population is a pressing issue for the city. In the past, the government practices the approach of tackling problems when it arises. The approach of the government is very fragmented. In this year's policy address, a working group on aging society strategies will be set up. It exactly addresses my concern so that we finally have top-level steering to make sure there is cross-departmental coordination in elderly care policy. But if you do not have the concrete implementation details, it will just be another working group that is superficial. I hope the government can take an extra step and promulgate an elderly care blueprint so that we have long-term and macro planning to tackle the challenge of an aging population. We have the subsidized elderly care places waiting time being multiple years. Elderly persons, unfortunately, may pass away before they can actually get a place. It is also a tragic situation where we need to have elderly persons taking care of other elderly persons. We have seen an increase in the number of vouchers available, but then the service quality is indeed of different quality, and there is also the problem of shortage of manpower. I have the following suggestions in this regard. We should unleash potential of elderly persons in working. Many of the elderly persons are still have the capabilities to work, so we should help them work and encourage them to work. We should regularize the re-employment allowance pilot scheme. We also need to consolidate the different resources for elderly health care. We need to make sure the mainland services quality are also up to par so that we can instill confidence in elderly persons. We should also be proactive in providing support to carers. We should set up a database of carers to identify high-risk cases. We should deploy more resources on respite and outreach services to minimize the chance of tragedies happening again. We should perhaps also have large-scale elderly housing. We may not have a lot of space for elderly persons to live in their individual spaces. The space is very tight for them. So if we can have something like one-stop large-scale elderly housing, we can provide better support to elderly persons in healthcare and ensuring their safety. I think it's better than having homes scattered across Hong Kong that are of relatively small scale. We can have the economies of scale, and we can ensure better quality of services. We have seen the government do much in trying to promote long-term development of industries, but there's room for improvement in public finance and the addressing of livelihood issues. We need to really tackle the bottlenecks in livelihood issues, especially in elderly policy, so that we can actually take forward the policies planned and make citizens feel the actual benefits of policies. Thank you, Mr. Lam Chen Sing. Thank you, President. We have seen some industries facing challenges due to the relatively poor economy. And after importation of labor, some employers have fired local employees. We have seen with the economic transformation, the economy is doing better, but then grassroots face an imminent difficulty in their work environment. We have seen for 2 occupations, waiters and junior cooks, there will be an adjustment in the importation ratio, but I think that is not enough. There should be an early review of the enhanced supplementary labor scheme, perhaps extending the adjustment of importation ratio to other occupations as well. And for certain occupations, if the demand and supply are in order, we should no longer import labor. We have seen the government saying in the policy address that employers should take part in on-site job fairs. But how much manpower does the Labor Department have to monitor the situation? For occupations that have a high unemployment rate, if we set a cap on imported labor, it will facilitate assessments and control of the impact on local employment. And it wouldn't need so much time on the part of the Labor Department to monitor the situation. Some say that we only have tens of thousands of imported labor and some talents admitted via various talent admission schemes. That's not a lot. But then we have various talent admission schemes. And we now have, with the talents, including the dependents, close to 300,000 non-locals working in Hong Kong. And if they all work in Hong Kong, this is a significant number. We will perhaps see them and their dependents work in some frontline occupations. So I hope the administration can have comprehensive assessments to really see if there is indeed a manpower gap still in certain occupations. If it's just that certain occupations need to import labor, we should limit the arrangements to such occupations. We also see the government earmarking an additional $30 billion on works expenditure for the development of the Northern Metropolis. I agree with this because we should not limit government expenditure simply because the government is in a tight fiscal position. It can also benefit labor in the construction industry. Recently, we have seen many illegal workers affecting local employment. I'm glad that the administration has set up a working group to combat illegal workers with interdepartmental coordination. I urge the government to tackle syndicates that import illegal workers into Hong Kong with inspections or removing the relevant ads on social media. The policy address also mentioned there will be a work injury compensation mechanism set up for digital platform workers. We welcome this. And we can see the government is trying to actively respond to the developments in the labor market landscape. We need to make sure the work injury compensation levels are up to par of the employees' compensation ordinance. We need to make sure there is communication with stakeholders so that the rights and employment benefits of digital platform workers can be improved. We have seen in some traditional occupations, such as in the F&B sector, some restaurants now have pre-made dishes. They no longer need cooks. They only need one or two general staff to deal with the cooking part of things. We also see less waiters being hired because people can now order electronically. So in general, there is less demand for labor for some industries. The government should provide training to workers in these sectors so that they can upskill themselves. For example, the government should provide training to these staff members so that they can perhaps switch to childcare, where we see a great demand for manpower. The government is actively developing Hong Kong into an international education hub. We have seen development in northern Metropolis providing for university town development as well as development of emerging industries. I hope that the university town will see a number of universities, elite universities, set up operations there. We also need to provide for integration of education and development of industries. We have seen before, we have cordon bleu institutes in other places. Hong Kong is a food paradise. We can perhaps see professionalized training in F&B provided in Hong Kong as well. The government is actively trying to encourage childbearing, including extending the additional child allowance period to 2 years. If we have families bearing more children, they will see a higher tax allowance. I believe it will encourage middle-class families in bearing children. We need to promote family-friendly employment practices to encourage more to work despite bearing children. I appreciate the government's efforts in this policy address. I would like to express my support for the motion I so submit. Professor Chan Wing-Kwong. I would first like to thank Dr. Starry LEE for proposing the motion. The title of this year's policy address is Deepening Reforms for Our People, Leveraging Our Strengths for a Brighter Future. We can see clear targets set and detailed plans made. We have some highlights of the policy address being a heads of department accountability system. It really shows the government's determination in enhancing governance. We have also seen the government promulgating plans for the development of Northern Metropolis, removing administrative restrictions. We have also seen the government actively trying to promote development of emerging industries and creating new growth areas. We also see the government upping labor support, prioritizing local employment. It shows that the government is willing to tackle problems head on and focus on addressing livelihood issues. I think in general this policy address is actually addressing different livelihood issues. According to recent media surveys, close to 62% of the citizens interviewed support the policy address measures. And it really shows the citizens' appreciation of this year's policy address. Later on, I will address healthcare and manpower and social welfare policies in the following.
I'm from the Chinese medicine sector. Close to my heart is the CM development policies in the policy address. This is a remarkable year for Chinese medicine. By the end of this year, there will be a Chinese medicine development blueprint. This will further enhance our top-level design for CM development. The Chinese Medicine Hospital and also the government Chinese Medicine Testing Institute will also open by the end of this year. Those will be milestones for CM in Hong Kong. I welcome the policy addresses timely measures. These measures will let CM play a greater role in keeping people healthy, and this will also help with the internationalization effort of CM, a national strategy. People look forward to the opening of the Chinese Medicine Hospital. As the PA argues, in the first year, there will be specialist services at the hospital. There will be services for common diseases for seniors. Those specialist services will provide better care and enhance patient well-being. I hope the government can take this opportunity to provide the supporting resources for specialties in Chinese medicine, and this will take CM to the next level. I also argued for expanding the voluntary health insurance scheme to CM services. Discussions on this matter started a long time ago, but a consensus has yet to be forged. So I hope the government can talk to the insurance sector so that we can come to a consensus that works for every stakeholder. And also hope that insurers can take account of CM. Please do not jack up premiums just because the policies will cover the Chinese Medicine Hospital in the future. The PA also proposes the sharing of health records on e-health and also the scope of health record sharing on e-health. I welcome this. The first supplementary question since my election as a legislative member was to call for the demolition of the data barrier between CM practitioners and Western medicine practitioners on e-health. This is why I welcome the PA measures on data sharing on e-health. The plan now is to start with the Chinese Medicine Hospital. We let CM practitioners and doctors share health records, and then we extend the practice to the Chinese Medicine Teaching and Research Institute. I support a pilot, but 95% of Hong Kong CM practitioners practice in the private market, so I hope this data sharing can be expanded to cover the 18 Chinese medicine clinics and research centers as well as private clinics so that both CM practitioners and doctors can access health records from the other side. This can truly drive cross-disciplinary collaboration and lead to better care. I also thank the Chief Executive for adopting the ideas from me and from the DAB on promoting integrated Chinese Western medicine. This will bring better care for more patients. Apart from stroke care and skeletal muscular conditions, there are other areas where CM has an edge, such as infertility. I hope the government can pay greater attention to areas where CM has an edge. So let's expand this integrated approach to more areas. We have experience in integrated Chinese Western medicine care. We also have purely CM care. Let's build on this experience to promote CM services so that it can make a greater contribution to people's well-being as a whole. I also welcome the PA's initiative to drive health and life sciences to bring in more healthcare or pharmaceutical companies. Now, on registration, certification, and drugs, we have an edge. So let's build on that to fast track the development of CM development. We also have the support of our country and we have global connections. We can be this two-way platform for CM to help our country's CM products enter the global market, and then we can turn Hong Kong into a place for internationalizing CM. Now, on healthcare policies in the PA, those are also top of mind for me. I'm delighted to see that there will be stricter regulation of healthcare professionals. There will be stricter crackdown on people practicing medicine without a license. There are people in society running premises offering so-called bone setting services, people access services provided by non-healthcare professionals. Those people get hurt. My own office got many requests for help. That's why I put in questions and also told the Health Bureau. I urged the Health Bureau to step up enforcement. I welcome the attention paid by the government to the issue. I can see the determination and energy with which the government approaches the matter. This is the government taking action to safeguard the reputation of the healthcare sector on shortening the waiting time for outpatient clinics and also strengthening cancer screening as well as stepping up subsidized dental care. These are welcome policies. I welcome them. Now, on people's well-being, I want to discuss manpower policies. The highlight in the PA this year is cracking down on the abuse of labor import schemes. Surveys have found that people found this policy truly mattered. They welcomed it. Despite this measure to clamp down on abuse, people in the F&B sector expressed concerns. They worried that the enhanced supplementary labor import scheme will affect their jobs. In the construction sector and the catering sector, the unemployment rate have risen markedly. So let's take people's concerns seriously. We can't clamp down on abuse. We should also keep an eye on how those schemes are going. When the sector-specific unemployment rate hits a certain level, timely action is needed to ensure we put local workers first. We should strike a balance between jobs and economic development. Attracting talent is also another key area of government policy. We have in place a range of talent admissions schemes. More than 230,000 people have come in to work. Those are great results. Those people also bring their family members here. So let's assess the situation in advance. We should find out the impact on Hong Kong's welfare system, healthcare and education system, so that local people will continue to see upward mobility. And we should also prepare for the integration of those outside talents. Now I turn to poverty relief. I welcome the extra community living rooms and the cap on the school-based after-school care program. These are targeted poverty alleviation measures. We all know the mainland is hugely successful in poverty eradication. Our country identifies and supports the disadvantaged with precision. That's how lifting people out of poverty works in the mainland. Over here in Hong Kong, we have done much. Still, our measures to lift people out of poverty have accomplished little. So let's learn from the mainland experience. Let's do more job matching. Let's do more on entrepreneurship so that we can help the poor stand on their own feet. This year marks the concluding year of the 14th five-year plan and also the preparatory year for the 15th five-year plan. How do we build on the past and tap into the future? The PA lays down a blueprint. Let's all work together. let's implement the measures under the policy address, and then we will be able to create a better future for Hong Kong. I so submit. I support the policy address and the motion of thanks. Mr. Tang Fei. President, I support the motion of thanks. The PA proposes a committee on development of the northern metropolis. In the first half of next year, a conceptual development plan will be announced on the Unitown in the NM that will cover the overall development model and the specific proposals. We look forward to that. I've been calling for this idea of turning Hong Kong into an international education hub. One key point from my election manifesto was to turn Hong Kong into such a hub. Now, I've also been serving as the chairperson of a subcommittee on Hong Kong as an international education hub. The Northern Metropolis Unitown will take us there. The working group on planning and construction of the university town held the first meeting last month. That working group will look at overseas experience and the advice of experts so that we plan ahead and come up with practical solutions. I support that. Now, for the NM Unitown to work, there are two ways to accomplish the goal. First, we expand the capacity of local universities, or we can bring in outside overseas universities and institutions. Of course, we can do a hybrid model. Now, let's look at local universities. We expand the capacity of local universities. Do we bring in world-class scholars, or do we bring in outside institutions? How do we create the conditions to attract overseas talent? How do we keep them here? That's a major question. If we take the alternative path, meaning we bring in world-renowned universities, what is the government's plan? Look at Singapore. They take that path with limited success. So what can we learn from Singapore? The Unitown is rather small in the northern metropolis. Yau Tan Mei, Hong Starry LEE, and in the other part, 90 hectares. Peking University and Tsinghua University, as well as the National University of Singapore, offer way bigger campuses. So we have to think beyond the land available. We need a more holistic perspective to our development model. We have to look beyond just size. For the Unitown, we have to make the most of the land. Precise planning and integrated development of our research, academic, and industry sectors will make a difference. That will make Hong Kong as an education hub more competitiveness. The Unitown needs to serve our strategic areas needs. What do we mean? We've been talking about high-end technology and getting enterprises to come here to create an ecosystem. In the 2022 policy address, the chief executive proposed aligning with national development. In the 2023 policy address, we saw different measures to strengthen and sustain Hong Kong's development along the 8 centers under the 14th Five-Year Plan. The University Grants Committee then supported programs related to those 8 centers at the 8 UGC-funded universities. This year marks the concluding year of the 14th Five-Year Plan, and then this year is also the preparatory year for the 15th Five-Year Plan. The 4th plenary session of the CPC Central Committee will be held soon. So we should continue the subsidy for the programs on the 8 centers, and also we have to think about the 15th Five-Year Plan. What's our own positioning? We have to think about that. For the Unitown, is it supposed to keep working on the 8 centers while development? What else should we focus on? These are questions for the government to consider when it plans the Unitown. Recently, the Education Bureau also proposed an enhanced curriculum framework for Chinese history and history. We're taking pressure off students in terms of exams. We're also focusing on the values education. This is no mean feat. We have to highlight values in the curriculum. We are also making exams less stressful. It's hard to achieve both, but we're working towards that. We're tweaking these two subjects to enhance students' understanding of our country, with deepening patriotism, with strengthening our students' cultural confidence in the country that warrants our support. And that's also something I've been calling for as part of our election manifesto. Now, I've seen some community views questioning our reform. Some people say our history education will end up as patriotic education, but history is always supposed to be part of patriotic education. I fail to see where that skepticism is coming from. History without values education itself represents a stance on values, because that effectively encourages indifference on the part of students towards our country's history. So we have to take a clear position in rejecting this kind of position. If we hold on to what is called values neutral in history, we will encourage alienation among students towards our country's history. This is what we get from the old curriculum, from the pre-1997 days. Now this reform is setting things right. We're re-establishing the importance of values education in Chinese history and history, and that warrants our support, and we should promote this.
Now, on basic education, there are many parts on this in this year's PA. On one hand, we have to maintain the high quality of education in Hong Kong. On the other hand, we have to address the issue of a drop in terms of the number of students. We are facing challenges. As people in the mainland said, we have to ensure sustainable development and continuous improvement in order to address the challenges. We have to innovate the educational system instead of having it stay in its original position. We have to enhance the quality of our education and at the same time address the issue of a shortage of student population. And the root cause of this is because we have an aging population problem. We're facing a change in demographic structure. To address this, the PA proposes allowing DSS schools to enhance the number of enrollment, allowing students from outside Hong Kong to get a visa to study in Hong Kong. This way we can address the root cause. Now, on improving the quality of our education, we have students who come to Hong Kong with a visa. Excluding MMT students, mainland Macau and Taiwan students, we have a lot of students from overseas. I support the pilot scheme on promoting post-secondary education. There's the proposal of setting up a task force to promote the Study in Hong Kong brand. We can have the DSS schools and the government work together to help our local universities to go global. Apart from targeting at Southeast Asian countries, we can target as East Asian countries. This can be a start for us. With just the effort of one or two universities, we won't be able to promote the Study in Hong Kong brand successfully. If we work with our DSS schools, for example, every year in July and August, we have education expo from all over the world, and we can hold similar expos in other places as well. The government can think of the following. First, on expanding the number of students. We're currently targeting at over students for self-finance students who come with a visa. Can we extend this scheme to MMT students so that we can increase the sources of our students? Hong Kong is a Chinese city. For those with a Chinese background, they can easily assimilate into our local education system, and these students can add new blood to our community. Now, on expanding the number of types of schools, currently this scheme only applies to DSS schools but not other self-financing schools. From our experience, we can deepen and expand the scheme to other types of subsidized schools so that different types of schools in Hong Kong can take part in making our education hub international. Lastly, on internationalizing DSE, this deserves our support. On overseas publicity, we should not only focus on the importance of exams. A well-known school principal said that our strengths do not only lie in examinations. At the same time, we have to stress that we focus on the whole person development of students. We have the relevant professional education. We have counseling at schools. We also have training for school uniformed groups. We have a comprehensive system. We do not only focus on exams. For both overseas students as well as MMT students as well as their parents, we need to let them know that for both higher education as well as basic education in Hong Kong, we have a balanced development. Only by doing so, we can ensure the quality of our young people, and we can ensure that our education system is not shrinking. If our education system shrinks, we cannot maintain the high quality. So we have to keep the number of students, maintain the quality of our education, and keep ourselves international. Only by integrating all these three factors that we can get things right in our education system, then we can serve our community as well as the entire nation, and we can attract those who are interested to come to study in Hong Kong. I so submit. Thank you. Mr. Shanghai Long. I would like to congratulate the SAR government. We have climbed 12 spots to the first among Asia in terms of our international talent ranking. I am happy that we're able to achieve this accomplishment. I'd like to thank the Chief Executive for taking on board my suggestions on talent admission schemes over the past few years. We are moving towards building ourselves into an international hub for high-caliber talent. I am the founding president of the Hong Kong Talent Services Association. Our association has helped hundreds and thousands of incoming talents. These incoming talents, as well as their family members, aren't permanent residents in Hong Kong. They don't have the right to vote, but they are part of Hong Kong. They are part of Hong Kong's citizens. We should be forward-looking in order to leverage our strengths in talent admission. This is not only the work of the Labor and Welfare Bureau, it is the work of the entire SAR government. So we have to focus on the integrated development of education, technology, and talent. How can we keep the incoming talents here? That's going to be the government's focus. I care about the new talent admission schemes. We're seeing a drop of 70% every year in terms of the quality migrant admission scheme. The Top Talent Pass scheme can bring about $34 billion of contribution. That accounts for 1% of our GDP. This shows that incoming talents contribute a lot to our economy. We have to seize the opportunity and improve the relevant support measures so that incoming talents have more reasons to stay in Hong Kong in the long run. I'd like to make 3 points. First, education is one point that can attract talents to come here. We should improve dissemination of information about government schools that can attract students who would like to join in the middle of a school term. We can have better talent support measures to build ourselves into a talent-friendly city. Apart from helping them find jobs, we can offer basic services to them. For example, the newborn baby bonus scheme could be extended to incoming talents. $20,000 of cash is not significant. So it's more about how we treat our incoming talents. Now, for the first 8 months, there were 28,000 cases of frauds amounting to huge monetary loss, and a lot of them have involved incoming talents and mainland students. We're seeing more fierce competition, so we have to be more innovative. We need policies to keep talents here. We need more comprehensive policy measures to help build ourselves into an international hub for high caliber talent. I so submit. Thank you. Professor William Wong. The Education Ministry of our country published a smart education white paper. It covers general education as well as guidelines for AI education at primary school level. We need to integrate AI and education. The SAR government also wants to align ourselves with the country's policy. In 2024, in the third plenary session, there is mention that we need to have a reform on education, technology, and talent. This year's policy address proposes reserving $2 billion for digital education at primary and secondary school level. And in 2026, there will be a blueprint for AI education. To effectively promote digital education, we have to come up with a curriculum framework for AI literacy. We cannot simply enriching our existing curricula on INT. We have to be able to apply technology flexibly. We need a clear framework for primary 1 to 6 students. For example, we need to nurture the mindset on making use of technology. We need a reform and a system to break from traditional barriers. We need cross-disciplinary education to nurture students' ability to solve problems. We need to review our education system to ensure that we can cultivate talents who can make use of technology. To promote high-quality education in Hong Kong, we have to come up with AI application models. That is the LLM, large language models. We can consolidate the core subjects and curricula for all subjects. For TSA, DSE, and other exams, we can consolidate the relevant education resources and provide them for students and teachers in Hong Kong. We can make use of AI to nurture elite students and high achievers. We can learn from the smart education platform on the mainland to come up with the curricula. We can also work with mainland authorities and localize them for the use of local students and teachers. We can deal with subjects such as English and mathematics. They are the lower hanging fruits. This year's PA proposes enhanced collaboration between joint enterprises in the mainland, as well as the 2 UAS, University of Applied Sciences in Hong Kong. These universities will work with Guangdong, and the SAR government will explore the mutual recognition of sub-degree education and qualification between mainland and Hong Kong. It will help VPAD graduates to look for jobs in the mainland and Hong Kong. I support this direction. With mutual recognition of qualifications, VPAD graduates in Hong Kong, they will have more opportunities to develop their career on the mainland. In the long run, Hong Kong will transform itself from a traditional commercial city into an innovative and technological city, we have to have more training for VPAT talents. The vocational training institutes in Hong Kong should set up campuses and branches on the mainland. There needs to be courses that get the mutual recognition from both mainland and Hong Kong. We should allow mainland graduates to come to work in Hong Kong to increase the supply of VPAT professionals in the city. We are moving into an era of AI with rapid development of artificial intelligence. We have to move with the times in terms of talent training. There is an increasing demand for people to work in jobs that require the knowledge of electronics and machinery. This is because we're seeing a rapid development of robots, and we will need talents to be able to cope with the change. So we cannot wait any longer to cultivate talents. We need to work on this so that vocational institutes can make preparation early to nurture the relevant talents. On manpower, we need to reform our projection methodology. In the past, we did a projection once every few years. We will lag behind and not be able to catch up with the demand of the market. So the government can make use of AI tools to collect information about the recruitment target and the relevant needs. This will allow us to, in a more timely manner, nurture talents.
The prevalence of AI is moving society to a new era where humans and machines will work together. With this revolution, workers need to be equipped with skills to operate AI. The government should make use of UASs, provide relevant courses for in-service workers so that they can adjust to this new era of AI. We also need to reform the employee retraining board courses to train the unemployed with skills to use AI. I so submit. Speaking in support of the motion. Dr. Aiman Yu, we have heard many people talk about the unemployment problem. The unemployment rate is now 3.7%. In the construction industry, it gets up to 6.9%. In the F&B sector, it's very high as well. The chief executive said in the policy address there will be more strict requirements for imported labor. There will also be the combating of illegal workers with joint enforcement operations. It shows that the government is actively responding to the problems, but there is still room for improvement. We need to do more to safeguard local employment, to combat illegal workers. The DAB suggests that the LWB need to have better manpower projection methodology. We have seen an improvement in the manpower gap according to public observations, but we see a lot of the companies still trying to import labor. They are trying to hire back-end workers in order to meet the manpower ratio requirement, basically circumventing the requirement. We should have adjustments made to the importation arrangements so that when the unemployment rate is high, there should be a cap or even suspension of importation arrangements. The government said that the recruitment period will be extended to 6 weeks and there will be a 2-to-1 manpower ratio. The DAB thinks this arrangement or these requirements should be extended to other occupations as well. The manpower ratio should also probably be adjusted to 3:1 to ensure local employment. The chief executive announced that the government will be earmarking $38 billion for works projects in the next 2 or 3 years. The DAB urges the government to actively take forward projects, especially small-scale livelihood works projects. Right now, with less work in the construction industry, many workers are left without jobs. The government should have public works projects stabilize employment and provide employment allowances if necessary. We have seen illegal workers being quite rampant, and they are scattered across occupations. With the task force to combat illegal workers, there should be better interdepartmental coordination to collect intelligence and conduct enforcement operations to combat the situation. We have heard many public rental housing residents say they want the reinstatement of tenants' purchase scheme, and we have recently done a survey. We have received 7,000 submissions. 80% of the PRH tenants said if there is a tenant purchase scheme again, they are more likely than not going to purchase PRH units. We have not seen any mention of the reinstatement of tenants purchase scheme in this year's policy address, but the government said they will take forward studies next year, and they need to carefully consider different options. We understand that the situation is complex. The reinstatement of tenants purchase scheme will involve various factors. The DAB actually suggested a solution of tenants purchase scheme 2.0 to actively respond to public expectations and try to resolve some persistent issues. We suggest the government conduct a territory-wide survey and start small, piloting the arrangements in only some of the housing estates. We should have the discount benchmark being 20 to 25%. We should consider household income and affordability and set the household prices to be $800,000 to $1 million. The monthly installment would be $6,000. It would be a reasonable level, and it can also essentially recover the costs for constructing public housing. Other public spaces in the housing estate should be managed by the housing authority. Perhaps there can be outsourcing to contractors so as to minimize disputes on maintenance. We should have each unit reserving $100,000 for 3 rounds of maintenance as deposit, and the maintenance cycle should be 15 years so as to prevent ballooning maintenance expenditure. If we can increase public housing supply, we believe with the reinstatement of tenants purchase scheme, there won't be any lengthening of waiting time for public housing. Instead, it will prevent the overlapping of resources. As for speculation risk, we suggest putting in place a 5-year alienation restriction period so that people have to pay land premiums before they can sell the flats to prevent speculation. The reinstatement of tenants purchase scheme will make for a more clear-cut housing ladder and enhance our mobility of PRH tenants. The government said there is still an adequate supply of tenants purchase scheme units, so they are not in a hurry to reinstate the tenants purchase scheme. But then the problem is many tenants want to purchase their own units, the units that they're living in, rather than purchasing green form flats. Tenants with the reinstatement of tenants purchase scheme, it will also generate stable government revenue. It is a policy that ticks different boxes, so I think the government should actively consider reinstating the tenants purchase scheme. The 2025 policy address shows the government determination in tackling different issues with foci on economic development and addressing livelihood issues and enhancing governance. The policy address meets public expectations. I urge the government to continue to take a citizen-oriented approach and keep pace with times in governance. I so submit. Professor Chairman Kong, I intend to speak on education, housing, and demographics policies in this session. The policy address is very innovative and it shows the government's determination to address various issues. It can bring about great development potential for society. On education, in the past 3 years, the government is actively developing Hong Kong as an international hub for post-secondary education. We came from 0 to 1, and now we see prosperity in the sector. I can say higher education in Hong Kong is an important breaking point for economic transformation of Hong Kong. I would like to thank the Chief Executive and the Education Bureau for working hard in this regard. We are relaxing the non-local student admission quota to 50%. I can see that the government is also reserving commercial land for the construction of hostels. A task force on study in Hong Kong will be set up. These are all suggestions taken on board by the government of ours. We believe the measures can produce 3 following effects. 1, recruiting elites to Hong Kong. For the government to raise the cap on non-local students, it will not hurt local students because the number of places for local students will not be affected. It instead will facilitate exchanges between local and non-local students, broadening horizons of local students. People need to understand we are facing a demographic challenge. We only have 45,000 people in education, and we have the latest childbirth numbers being 36,700. In 2015, it was 60,000. There is a significant gap, and we now have every 3 DSE students. One of them will be admitted to a local university. In future, the ratio may be even lower. It is important to admit more students to Hong Kong, and non-local students, as I said earlier, can help broaden the horizons of local students, enhancing competitiveness of local students. Non-local students will often be admitted through different channels such as GCSE or GCEs, IB. So these are qualifications that are well recognized. I believe the skills are often recognized as well through such qualifications, so admitting them will be beneficial to Hong Kong. In 2022 and 2023, my team published a report on Hong Kong's development into an international education hub. We found that in different places, exchange students or non-local students in general will generate significant economic benefits for places. So we have the government launching the hostels in the city scheme recently, providing facilitation measures for developers to convert commercial buildings or hotels into hostels. not only does it meet the needs of non-local students, it also maximizes use of space in Hong Kong. It facilitates the healthy development of the property market in Hong Kong. It will also help with the situation where there is inadequate supply causing competition of hostel places between local and non-local students. In this year's policy address, it sees that the government will be engaging more land to construct hostels. It will provide more infrastructure for hostels, and on commercial property, the government can perhaps engage more private developers. This will for the construction of hostels so that we can develop more opportunities for jobs in the field and create impetus for development of Hong Kong. The third advantage is that we will be able to create synergy. The Education Bureau will establish a task force on study in Hong Kong and work with other offices to promote higher education of Hong Kong. 3 short-term measures were announced. I hope that the government can develop the study in Hong Kong brand and leverage on our vision of the university town to have the task force become a standing body and institutionalize the publicity and promotion work of developing Hong Kong as an international hub for post-secondary education. We should refer to the experiences of bodies such as the British Council to promote to different places Hong Kong's education services.
On housing, this year's policy address proposed an extra 1,000 spots for singleton and young applicants for HOS flats. There will be measures for applicants who make the most of it. There will be a flat scheme for seniors. Now, for the 7,000 spots under WSM, 30% of it, or 2,000, will be for people aged below 40. This will meet the aspirations of young people of getting on the housing ladder by securing HOS flats. And we're also improving the chances of HOS applicants for buying the flats they want with a better living condition. People will have bigger families, and this will foster childbirth. The Secretary for Housing deserves credit for what she has done. I've been calling for a measure for 2 years, and that is extending the child care allowance to 2 years after a child is born. This shows the current term government is committed to reversing the trend of sub-replacement fertility. This will lead to more population in Hong Kong. I support the motion of thanks. Mr. Dennis Leung. I support the motion of thanks moved by Dr. Starry LEE. I also thank the Chief Executive for delivering the 2025 policy address. The PA this year is about deepening reforms for our people and leveraging our strengths for a bright future. There is commitment, there are measures, and this goes into the Chief Executive's philosophy of being result-oriented. We find the right way to meet the right goal, and then we will achieve the right results. The past 3 years focused on reform, and that will lead to outcomes. In 1978, Deng Xiaoping first proposed reform. At the third plenary session of the 20th CPC Central Committee, General Secretary Xi Jinping gave a key speech. He highlighted reform and Chinese modernization. And as the Chief Executive said, reform is an ongoing undertaking. We reform, we open up to the outside world, we free our mind, we stay pragmatic. So to deliver on the Policy Address 2025, I call on the government to free their mind. We have to approach new challenges with new thinking. The PA has measures on improving governance. First, the heads of department accountability system. Second, a more vigorous appraisal system for the civil service. And third, establishing an AI efficacy enhancement team. All government officials and civil servants should learn about the policy address and implement these reform measures. The public expects an efficient government so that the people can feel a sense of gain, well-being, and security. LegCo has been working side by side with the government. We gave advice, we helped the government deal with issues, but we have a challenging global landscape. Wars are raging in different places. The US has slapped tariffs on other countries. Hong Kong cannot expect to sit pretty. I expect the ACL government to play a proactive leadership role. Let's get in touch with different sectors. We have to explain to people the internal and external challenges so that we all work together, and then we will emerge stronger. Now, I'm from the education sector. I want to discuss education. This falls under Chapter 7, the integrated development of education, talent, and technology. First, we have the International Education Hub. Second, International INT Center. Third, IP Center. On the International Education Hub, this is just the right development we should be pursuing. We have 5 of the world's top 100 universities. We can draw mainland and Southeast Asian students. This will also spur other industries. We also want to keep the talent we bring here so that our local students can learn from their peers. We have to keep moving ahead. We have to remain open to outsiders. Our local students can handle the competition from mainland and overseas students. So parents and others in the community shouldn't lose sleep over this. But let's not overlook the needs of local students. We have to keep reforming our curriculums, and also we need hostels. After all, hostels are a key part of the student experience at university, so the government should fast-track the building of student hostels. This is to meet the needs of not just local students, but other visa students. Now, I'm from the labor sector. VPAT is also close to my heart. There are measures on this. Under this year's PA, there will be more universities of applied sciences. We want to teach students about this so that they can meet their career needs. Some schools, universities, students, and parents have yet to find out about VPAT. So let's work harder on this. Let's focus on VPAT and focus on universities of applied sciences. Young people are our future, but competition in Hong Kong is fierce. Studies are stressful. At the workplace, life is also stressful. So we have to face up to mental health as an issue. The Education Bureau has launched a number of measures over the past couple of years. We have to look after people of different abilities, people with different needs. We have the 4 hours mental health charter. We also have the 3-tier emergency response system. This will be extended to cover primary 4 to 6 students that will protect our students. This year, there will also be a resource package for the parents of secondary students. This will help parents become better parents. We also need quality teachers to deliver quality education. After all, education is about building character. I support the idea of introducing practicing certificates for teachers. We need to have a look at the education, credentials, and character of teachers. Knowledge and skills change all the time. We want our students to absorb the latest knowledge. So we should set expectations for teachers. This practicing certificate requirement will ensure that teachers keep up with the changing times. It's about gatekeeping. We want the best for the next generation. Times change. Other professions have their practicing certificates in place. I believe professional teachers will see why we're launching this scheme. They shouldn't lose sleep over this because the best way of teaching is to lead by example. Now I turn to the children of outside talent in Hong Kong. Mainland residents know little about our education system here and curriculum. So criminals in the mainland mislead people. We should not underestimate the impact of that on Hong Kong. The Education Bureau should do more. We should be sharing information through official channels so that mainland residents are well informed and we can truly help the children of outside talent. On regulating private schools, there are loopholes in the system. We'll have to fix them soon. If there are legislative issues, let's amend our laws to fix that. Now, I'm from the labor sector, so I want to discuss labor policies. I want to talk about occupational safety, especially for working at height and cranes. Accidents do happen. On the 30th of September, there was a fatal accident involving a hoist operation. We got in touch with district councillors. We visited the site. The death was avoidable. The Commissioner of Labor told me about measures taken to improve occupational safety, but there's room for improvement. So I call on people at the Labor Department to free their mind. We need new measures. We need new ways to approach inspection and regulation. Hong Kong people are resilient. They want to stand on their own feet. They want to support themselves. They don't want to stay on CSSA. But are we giving workers dignity? Are we putting local workers first? In practice, the Secretary for Labor and Welfare said imported labor represents just 1% of our overall workforce. But let's look at our 3.7 million strong workforce. That percentage is not right and it's not fair. Because we're only bringing in outside workers for certain sectors such as elderly care, construction, transport, and the 26 posts on the exclusion list, meaning those non-skilled posts. Let's look at government figures. From the 4th of September 2023 to the 31st of May 2025, the government brought in 61,056 outside workers. I get it, the government is responding to the calls from businesses, but let's also hear from the labor sector. Let's appreciate the concerns of workers. Local workers had the job. Employers then hired outside workers, and then the landscape shifted. Those workers kept their head low. They took it on the chin. That's because if their options are limited, they don't want to be blacklisted. They don't want to lose other job opportunities. So the government hotline for reporting abuse fails to fix the problem. So I call on the government to pay attention to the labor market. Don't be misled by the current picture. Unemployment rates are ever higher. Underemployment rate is at 1.6%. The unemployed population is at roughly 150,000 people. I hope the Labor Department and the Employees Retraining Board can help the 140,000 unemployed workers reskill, and let's do job matching for them so that they can stand on their own feet and share in the success of economic development. So in this new era, reform is also warranted for the Labor Department. They should adopt new ways. They should give employment support so that those who want to work can find work and then they can make a living and enjoy a good life. The government has been bringing in strategic enterprises. It has also been driving innovation technology. It has been driving new industrialization to bring back manufacturing. Bringing in these economic activities will create more jobs for the benefit of workers. I hope different policy bureaus can do more on promoting jobs and do more job matching. Let's encourage businesses to create more jobs and hire local workers. The government should help job seekers and the unemployed so that they can work, and that will create fresh momentum for our economy. In this new era, in this new economic landscape, much has changed. The old formula no longer works, so let's all embrace this new era. We should stay informed about how this works. Vocational education has its place. Academic education isn't everything. So I hope the Education Bureau and the Labor and Welfare Bureau can work together on vocational education and VPET at large, so that we create new pathways for the new generation. That's how we can drive our economy. I hope the SCL government can work together with the public in leveraging our unique strength. Let's grow the pie. Let's bring in new institutions and a new system of distribution so that everyone gets a bigger share of the pie, and we all shape the future together and enjoy a better life. I support the motion. I so submit.
Dr. Tan Yueheng. Thank you, Deputy President. In this session, I will focus on the measures of building ourselves into an international education hub. This year's PA proposes the integrated development of technology, education, and talent. We have to build ourselves into an international education hub. We need to build a hub for attracting high-caliber talent. I'm glad that the government is relaxing the restrictions for post-secondary institutes. There will be a task force on study in Hong Kong brand. We'll have the university town in the northern metropolis. I believe all these measures can help promote the quality and quantity of our post-secondary education. I have the following suggestions. First, the government needs to allocate resources to support post-secondary institutes to enhance their hardware facilities so that they can increase the service quality and capacity. There should be more resources dedicated to removing restrictions. We need to promote the building of existing facilities. We need to encourage public-private partnership. We need to revitalize commercial assets to increase the supply of student hostels to meet students' needs. With an increasing number of non-local student quotas, there need to be a ratio set on the number of student hostel places for both local and non-local students. Second, we have to step up student recruitment. We need students from all over the world in order to build ourselves into an international education hub. We can focus on tapping into the Middle Eastern as well as the South American markets. These are newly emerging markets. We need a targeted strategy. We can learn from Europe and the US and step up collaboration with study tour organizations. We can build a mature network to recruit students from all over the world. We need value-added activities to promote the study in Hong Kong brand. We can encourage universities to recruit students. We need to promote international exchanges among primary and secondary school students with those in the rest of the world. We need integrated development. In the long run, to promote post-secondary education, we need to get things right for basic education. The PA proposes involving primary and secondary students in the development work. We need a more comprehensive industrial chain. We need medium and long-term education plan. so that primary and secondary schools can work with universities to build ourselves into an international hub. We need primary and secondary schools better interfaced with post-secondary institutes and education. We can increase boarding facilities for primary and secondary school students and attract more young students to come to study in Hong Kong with a visa. I so submit. Thank you. Mr. Eric Yim. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of the motion. This year's policy address aligns with national strategies. There is a series of innovative reforms and measures. It shows that the SAR government is determined to enhance governance. On boosting economic growth and improving people's lives, there are a number of measures. The government has taken on board many suggestions of members of G19. This PA deserves our recognition. We're moving from stability to prosperity, and this PA helps inject impetus to it. I'm going to focus on the development of the 3 centers, talent admission, as well as the participation of Chinese enterprises. I have suggestions for the government. On the development of the Northern Metropolis, the government is going to set up the Committee on Development of the Northern Metropolis to be chaired by the Chief Executive. It shows the top-down leadership. Also, development will be taken forward in phases for the university town in the NM. This aligns with the suggestions I raised. Here, I'd like to express my gratitude to the government. We can strengthen our efforts on 3 areas. We can incorporate the development of the NM into the National 15 Five-Year Plan. There can be an industrial demonstration park between Hong Kong and Shenzhen. We should attract large-scale enterprises to set up headquarters in the park. We need a better tendering exercise or practice. We need to meet international standards we can learn from the mainland to ensure we can reduce construction costs and we can make use of quality construction materials. The government said it will incorporate national standards for the railway development. I hope that we can introduce national standards as soon as possible. The government recently announced that it will suspend the exhibition gallery in Wan Chai. I think we can have an exhibition gallery in the Northern Metropolis instead. We can learn from the mainland. We can make use of AI as well as virtual reality technologies. These only cost about 100 billion RMB. We can showcase the plan of the development of NM, and at the same time, it can be built into a tourist attraction in the NM. On financial services, I support the measures to build Hong Kong into an international financial center. There will be new measures for making use of RMB. There will be counters, and they will be incorporated into the Stock Connect southbound trading scheme. There will be the gold settlement scheme. This shows that the government seeks diversified development of the financial sector. This aligns with my proposal to make use of RMB for different types of trading, including heavy metal. We're facing challenges in the global order. Hong Kong needs to make breakthroughs in the following areas. First, we need to explore stable coins that is linked with RMB. We need a different settlement path. Second, we can lower the threshold of $500,000 of investment of the Stock Connect scheme. This can direct capital to Hong Kong's market. Third, we need a carbon trading platform with a unified standard among the GBA. On trade, the government proposes setting up a working group on commodity trading. There will be half-rate tax concessions, and there will be a sea rail land intermodal shipment scheme. This shows that the government is willing to adopt a diversified approach. This is in line with my proposal to enhance the offshore trading ecosystem and speeding up the commodity trade to address the challenges brought by US-Sino rivalry. We have to incorporate Hong Kong into an independent tax zone. This could be a bargain chip for the China-US negotiation. Also, we have to enhance the river trade channel in Tuen Mun to promote cross-boundary e-commerce. Thirdly, we have to encourage local financial institutions to set up branches in Shanghai and Hengqin to support SMEs in the mainland to go global. On shipping, the PA proposes setting up partnership ports and expand the aviation network. This deserves our recognition. We should achieve complementary effect with different ports. We need a win-win mindset. Again, this is in line with my proposal to deepen port collaborations. I agree that in order to enhance our status as an international shipping and aviation hub, the government needs to do the following. First, Hong Kong Invest Corporation can learn from Temasek in Singapore to invest in neighboring ports. The Hong Kong Airport Authority acquired equity from the Zhuhai Airport. We can learn from this model to invest in core ports in Shenzhen and Guangzhou. This will create the conditions for us to restructure the assets of ports in Greater Bay Area. We can create synergy, and together we can expand port network. Second, the US is going to stage tariffs against the maritime and shipping industry of Hong Kong and the mainland. This has to do with their Act 301. We can make use of the tools in the mainland, for example, the recently amended maritime legislation in the mainland for developing shipping financing and registration. Also, we need to expand the fifth traffic right. We can use Hong Kong as the aviation hub to drive tourism as well as logistics development. On tourism, we have to focus on developing our outlying islands. We can improve the transport links between our islands as well as the urban area. We can step up the transportation network in Lantau. We can speed up the study on 2 tunnels and 1 bridge. We have to ensure, however, the safety of residents in Lantau. On talent admission, I'm happy that the PA took on board the suggestions made by me as well as other members of G19. I proposed improving the new capital entrant investment scheme by lowering the investment threshold from $50 million to $30 million for the purchase of residential unit. This will help inject impetus to the sluggish real estate property market. I am concerned about the incoming talents who face difficulties with bringing in capital as they try to purchase properties in Hong Kong. I think the relevant procedures should be streamlined in order to address the problems for incoming talents to bring in capital. This way, we can help incoming talents take root in Hong Kong. As we bring in professional talents, we have to be prudent. We have to, at the same time, safeguard the rights of locals. In terms of importing labor, the government can review the rules of the wage of imported labor not lower than the median wage of local workers. We're facing a more serious aging population problem. The birth rate is low. We're short of labor. This kind of structural problems have an impact on our economic and social development. There needs to be a top-down approach in designing and formulating the population policy. We need to boost the birth rate, and we need to ensure our elderly people can retire in the mainland. We can also attract young people from outside Hong Kong to study here. It is hoped that in the 100th anniversary of the establishment of the PRC, that is by 2049, the average age of Hong Kong could be lower than 46.3, so as to inject vitality to the international metropolis. We need to improve the healthcare network and the social safeguards for our people. We need to enhance the sense of well-being of elderly people. We welcome the triage system. We need more outpatient services at the community level. This will help reduce the waiting time for specialist services. We're short of healthcare professionals.
I believe the government can take 3 directions in improving the situation. 1, on the premise of ensuring professionalism, we can relax the training and registration requirements for practitioners. As the Chinese medicine hospital will soon be commissioned, we should actively promote integrated Chinese Western medicine. We should also try to develop a mutual recognition framework for mainland and Hong Kong healthcare qualifications. We can put in place examinations for practitioners to take in order to obtain qualifications on both sides. This will also help facilitate technical exchanges and integration of healthcare on the mainland and in Hong Kong. We also need to have a long-term healthcare policy to meet the challenges brought about by an aging population. Lastly, on Chinese invested enterprises' participation in livelihood matters in Hong Kong. Enterprises of Chinese investment not only bring about employment opportunities, but also have been actively supporting district work. They play a key role in promoting patriotism and support for the underprivileged groups. And under the Poverty Commission Working Group on Patriotic Education and Social Workers Registration Board, various bodies, there is great room for greater participation by Chinese invested enterprises. Not only will that pool more resources of society to improve people's livelihood, it can also allow Chinese invested enterprises to better contribute to society. Under one country, 2 systems, as long as we work together, we can have a brighter future. I so submit. Ms. Nixie Lam. Thank you, Deputy President. I have all along been paying close attention to demographic issues. We can see that the government with this year's policy address changing their direction, becoming more proactive in encouraging childbearing. I very much welcome that. I'm sure many people remember I had a fight essentially with the Secretary for Health in a motion debate on cancellation of services for freezing eggs. I have all along been working on this. I actually had no hopes at one point, but on my birthday, the government removed the period for, or a deadline for freezing eggs. I very much appreciate that, and we have also seen the government increase the number of places for assisted reproductive services. this would help many households in need. So I want to thank the government for this. The Hong Kong marriage age in general is 32.7. We will see a trend of people getting married later in life. We need specific policies to meet the challenges brought about by this. We have recently seen many people talk about how Taylor Swift got engaged and is getting married. They choose to get married when they're at the peak of their careers. This is very much different from the view before, where people should achieve great success in careers before they get married. If this is something that is actually happening in general, we really need to take this into account with recruitment of talents. We have also seen more family-friendly practices taken on board by the government. As a mother of a 2-year-old, I thank the chief executive for promulgating measures to help with child care of parents. I also note that we have the clinical trial institutes and other measures trying to promote life and health technology development in Hong Kong. We're already top in the world, but it's always great to see more support, and it will benefit the economy in the end. I also note that there will be a policy in relation to HPV self-collected samples. I think not only would that help safeguard health for the public, it can also enhance awareness of youngsters and that they can start young with such care. It will prepare them for a future family life. Thank you. Mr. Vincent Ching. Thank you, Deputy President. We have the policy address covering extensively various livelihood issues, including housing. In particular, they talked about increasing public housing supply, enriching the housing ladder, enhancing mobility of PRH tenants. I think the policies announced are very targeted. I've all along been paying close attention to the issue with housing ladder. We can see people moving from subdivided units to public housing or transitional housing, and in the end they can purchase home ownership scheme flats. There are various schemes on housing in the policy address, have changing the ratio of green form and white form applicants, having more quotas under the white form scheme, and other measures. It is very clear that the government is determined to enhance upward mobility of PRH tenants. We have the public housing unit supply being 189,000. We believe with adequate supply, it will facilitate turnover of public housing units, and with a clear housing ladder, we can definitely do that. The legislature recently passed the Basic Housing Units Bill. Starting from March next year, we will see the laws come into operation. We are gradually eradicating subdivided units to at least provide some basic protection to the SDU tenants with the requirements of basic housing units. I hope that the government will continue to provide support to SDU tenants, enhance coordination, and enhance publicity on basic housing unit standards. We can also provide better support through community living rooms. Let me now turn to light public housing. With the eradication of substandard subdivided units, we can see there are different parts to the housing ladder, like public housing, basic housing units, transitional housing, PRH housing, PRH and HOS flats. I can see that the Architectural Services Department have been very strict with their inspections, and they are taking a proactive stance in conducting inspections. We need to make sure to rectify issues early on once we've identified them. I have taken part in many housing projects relating to transitional housing and light public housing. We can see in the first phase it was transitional housing made by MIC, and then we have now 30,000 odd transitional housing units, and many of the residents have already moved on to PRH. We are already quite confident in the use of light public housing and transitional housing. It is an important part of turnover in the public housing side of things, so we need to continue to take forward work in this regard. I would now want to turn to youth. We all along pay close attention to youth development. It is very important to society. We often talked about enhancing upward mobility for youth as well. Right now, youngsters have much support. There are many opportunities for them. I very much appreciate the youth hostels set up for youth. We also have the Youth Link Community Center in Nanchang and on Tongchao Street. I hope that it can create synergy for youngsters, providing more activity spaces for them, because in these districts we do see much youth activities such as bazaars. So that with these youth facilities, I believe it will bring about vitality to these neighborhoods as well. I would also like to thank the government for supporting care teams. Care teams have made great contributions at different times, such as when typhoons hit Hong Kong. They are volunteers. They are doing such work because they are passionate about their neighborhoods. I hope that Ms. Alice Mack will continue to support care teams in their work. We have talked about how a youth link and youth network and women's network will be set up in recruitment services centers. We also need to support ethnic minorities. We have many ethnic minorities in Hong Kong. They are very capable. They want to better adapt to Hong Kong life. If we can provide more services to them so that they can know more about the local culture and in turn integrate into society better, it will be ideal. I would like to lastly express support for the policy address. I also thank Dr. Starry LEE for proposing the motion. Thank you. Mr. Chen Yong. Thank you, Deputy President. I very much support the Chief Executive's policy address that has much content. I also thank Dr. Starry LEE, the Deputy President, for proposing the motion of thanks. We can see the policy address laying foundations for Hong Kong. It is, as President Xi said, we need to focus on the grassroots in order to have a stable society, and it is the same in Hong Kong. We need to have, on top of top-level leadership, social level workers such as the volunteers to help those who are less privileged. In the policy address, we have talked about creating impetus for growth. So in the end, we can improve people's livelihood so that people will actually benefit from the fruits of economic development. With the leadership of Chief Executive and senior government officials, we can see enhancements made to care team services. We are glad that the government has taken on board DAB's suggestions to provide more support to care teams and recognize the efforts of care team members. In future, we hope that some administrative arrangements can be regularized? Can we provide priority to care teams for rental of venues? We can provide more support to them because they are serving the districts. We can perhaps also provide more professional services support for them, and maybe we can do some matching with civil servants so that we can have, on top of volunteers, more people serving districts. We have 3 additional care teams set up with the announcement of the policy address. We can see that care teams have helped when typhoons hit Hong Kong, when there was a bomb found in a district. And people do note the efforts made by care teams. We do note some figures. Care teams have visited 580,000 elderly households. They have made support visits to over 1 million households. I now want to talk about the Northern Metropolis University Town. I'm sure all members support the initiative. It also helps us develop Hong Kong into an international hub for high caliber talents. I have some suggestions. We have seen for some of the universities in their vicinity, there are commercial buildings purchased by the universities to be hostels. We should do the same for the Northern Metropolis University Town. We need to create some sort of synergy with development.
Now, on overseas Chinese, there are more than 60,000 people in the Chinese diaspora. So let's set up some kind of coordinating committees for these overseas Chinese so that the Chinese diaspora can play a bigger role. There's something going on in ASEAN. Let's work on that, and we can use that to foster business ties. Young people are our future. So are women. Let's get more women to work. We can see many distinguished women here among our lawmakers, among our senior officials. Now, for young people, whatever works best for young people, let's work hard on that. If something is rejected by young people, we can fine-tune that. I support the policy address. And I hope we can do better and keep this up. Dr. David Lam, I support the motion of thanks. I want to focus on eHealth Plus, privacy of private healthcare fees, and if I have time left, I want to talk about effective regulation of professional services. First, eHealth Plus. We talked about that at the panel on health services. The health record for all has been the vision of the healthcare sector for the past 2 decades. Integrating health records for patients is also a moral obligation on doctors. Now we see some preliminary connection between eHealth Plus and clinical records. Still, challenges remain. Internet bandwidth is one example. Unsteady internet connection, handwritten health records, the lack of a feature for patients to enter or recording certain details, double entries, and overloading of information on eHealth. These are challenges. Yesterday, 9 medical associations and the Health Bureau, as well as the Department of Health, held a seminar. Questions were asked. The eHealth office addressed the concerns. We had a frank exchange, and we worked together to resolve problems. eHealth aside, treatment data also matter. I hope that eHealth can become a tool that assists doctors with diagnostics and provide preliminary solutions on treatment. Healthcare monitoring devices at home are widely available, but we lack a coordinated approach to the data. We don't have any integration. So I support legislation on regulating medical devices. So for that, eHealth Plus can be a platform for recognized or accredited medical devices. Now, I turn to fees for private healthcare services. I'm all for transparency. It's already an established practice for private doctors to quote the fees beforehand. Patients are worried about out-of-pocket expenses. There's a formula. It's the medical fees minus the insurance payout. So we need transparency not just for the medical fees, but also for the insurance payout. I suggest a pre-approved platform for insurance payout. Let's set up a platform. Let the doctors enter the fees and then the insurers approve the payout. That will give the patient know in advance what the out-of-pocket expenses will be. This will also help the government gather data. And this will also implement the concept during the discussion of voluntary health insurance, and that is the known gap. Now, we need not just transparency, but also certainty in healthcare. Complications represent the biggest source of uncertainty. Say you want to remove something from your body for colorectal cancer. You have to go back to the hospital for aftercare. You need antibiotics. You have to do the wound dressing. All that means ever bigger medical bills, and that can catch patients off guard. So we need to explore a financing model for expenses related to complications. So here are my suggestions. First, for medical insurance, we should define complications as something distinct from the original diagnosis. Second, let's talk to insurers. Let's set up complication-specific insurance policies. Or we can let people take out insurance for complications upon hospital insurance in one fell swoop. Or we can do a levy. Let's set up a fund to cover expenses arising from complications, especially for hospital-related fees. Now I turn to effective regulation of the medical profession. Now, someone styled themselves as a clinical psychologist, and this person was convicted and sentenced for indecent assault on children. After serving the sentence, this person continued to style himself as a clinical psychologist. We don't have a statutory recognition, a statutory title system for psychologists, so there's no legal basis for real clinical psychologists to take action. So there's room for improvement for this registration system. So to keep the existing registration regime, and say we want to legislate for professional titles and registration, we will need a single body to give approval before someone can use that title. That will lead to effective regulation over the quality and integrity of professionals, and that will protect the public. We are leading the globe in our health index, but healthcare requires continuous improvement. If we fail to move forward, we end up being left in the dust. So many problems require a solution, and we need to put everyone's heads together and work together to fix the problems. Thank you. Dr. Tik Ji Yun. The policy address mentions that we are the third global financial center, and we also top the leaderboard or rank among the top few across so many indices. That points to our outstanding economic performance. We are doing very well. We should be pleased and we should take pride in all these great results. But I also wish to point out that we do less well in other areas. 1.39 million people in Hong Kong live below the poverty line. For every 100,000 people, 14.1 people are on the verge of suicide. 80% of our 160,000 carers are women. They are worn out, they don't get support, People with disabilities wait on average for more than 70 months for institutional care. The government hire out of the government workforce, only 1.4% of the civil servants are people with disabilities. Grassroots families are struggling hard to get by. The strength of a city is not just measured by the wealth created, but also measured by how that wealth is distributed. Why do we care for the weak? Seniors today once contributed to our economic success today. In their youth, they put in the effort, and that led to our prosperity. For PWDs and their carers, they contribute to the community in whatever way they can. Everyone in the community should get to share in the prosperity of our society. That's basic fairness. However, reality is not what it's supposed to be. Public finances are strained, and we have seen cuts to social welfare. So the disadvantaged bear the consequences of our strained finances, and that points to poor allocation of resources. That's short-termism for the government and irresponsibility. We should put the disadvantaged first in policy making. We shouldn't treat them as liability. The government should not just cut back services just because of a deficit. We should focus on the demand rather than just the resources. The government has shown some care in its policies. Still, we are still taking this band-aid approach. We don't have any vision in blueprint. We need structural reform to welfare that shows foresight. We need cross-departmental collaboration with quantifiable targets, a timetable, and a mechanism to monitor ongoing progress. The government can do this. The PA proposed a working group on aging society strategies. This merits credit. This shows cross-departmental work. There are clear goals. We have timelines. That shows applying systems thinking to complex social problems. So that should be a model for any task to help our disadvantaged. Three groups struggle particularly hard. First, the impoverished. We need a targeted approach to poverty alleviation. We need to bring back the poverty line. We need a multi-pronged approach. We need specific measures and a timetable to eradicate poverty. Now, for persons with disabilities, they struggle not just with daily life. There is also institutional neglect and discrimination. They have to wait for more than 10 years for a care home. There's a shortage of barrier-free access. They struggle to find jobs. That shows the community's indifference to the rights of PWDs. They need not compassion, but safeguards, institutional safeguards. Now I turn to carers. They are the invisible pillars of the community. The population is aging. There are demographic shifts. Carers are coming under increasing stress. Starting from this year, the government will start a database on at-risk carers, but we are not covering enough carers. We talk about economic recovery and how we rise up the leaderboard internationally. At the same time, those most in need are still left struggling through the cracks. We cut back on welfare spending. Meanwhile, we talk about vision for development. We take pride in rising up the leaderboard, but we neglect the weak. There's a flaw in this kind of prosperity. The government should put the disadvantaged first in development. I now turn to young people. Young people struggle not just with personal issues, there are social structural problems. Young groups are grappling with helplessness and alienation. We have to get a clear idea of what's wrong, and we have to find ways to reignite hope among young people. The biggest challenge is the ever-dwindling opportunities for participation Student unions and universities are sidelined. There are more restrictions on community campus participation, and we are losing channels for young people to take part in politics. And then ever more restrictions are also being put in place for artistic creation, and there are fewer performance venues, and there are more red lines to look out for. So all those factors confine the space for young people. And this has an impact on the feelings of young people. They feel neglected, they feel rejected, they feel alienated from the community. They fail to see how they can make their voices heard. There's no room for trial and error for young people. They are barred from participation. So there's no sense of commitment from them. Young people cannot see how their effort can translate into achievements in the future. They descend into helplessness. And there are just few options left for progression pathways. Society is too caught up on just one or two options in life, so young people struggle to find their own directions. And that's why young people struggle to see a future. They fail to see where they can be, and that leads to helplessness and feeling lost. We need more room and more freedom for young people. We need more opportunities. There should be academic space for young people to research different topics. They shouldn't have to worry about penalties for taking divergent views. Participation should be possible on campus in other parts of the community, so that young people can get involved and make a difference in decision making. Cultural and creative space should be available for those in film and music. They should be able to unleash their creativity.
We need more progression pathways. There are different types of talents displayed by young people. We should not gauge their success based on one kind of standards. We should have diversified pathways for young people so that young people with different abilities can find their own paths that are suitable for them. They should be treated equally by the community. They should get the support from us. Also, we need to give them opportunities to rebuild their identity. We have to allow them to be able to see that there is an interrelationship between being independent and being successful. We need to recognize their effort, and more importantly, we need to help young people find their values as well as their position in the stories of Hong Kong, so that they can participate in the development of the community. When young people thrive, our society prospers. We need to give true space and true options and opportunities to our young people so that they can find their positions in the stories of Hong Kong. I so submit. Thank you. Ms. Rebecca Chan. Thank you, Deputy President. I mainly want to focus on healthcare-related initiatives. This year's policy address shows the continuity of healthcare-related policies and reforms. For example, there will be an enhanced healthcare system, an enhanced primary healthcare system. There will be stepped-up prevention screening for cancer. There will be treatment for CM. On reform, I think most people are concerned about what the government mentioned about reforming the fees for public healthcare services. This will take effect starting from November this year. I have said on a number of occasions that there is a lack of nighttime outpatient services. For example, we see a 90% usage for medicine outpatient services in most of the clusters, and appointment rate reaches 99%. We all know how difficult it is to make an appointment for outpatient services. In the PA, there's mention about stepping up preventive screening as well as healthcare services, and the service hours for medicine outpatient services will be extended. However, we lack a concrete proposal. Earlier at the panel on health services, I raised the concern about whether the fee reform would happen before these concrete proposals can be rolled out. 25,000 more quotas will be provided for nighttime outpatient services. For Shamshui-po, we have such demand as we have a high population of grassroots as well as elderly people. And 1 out of 6 of the medicine outpatient clinics in Chansha-wan runs until 10 p.m. I hope that there could be more nighttime quotas for districts with high demand such as Shamshui-po. Currently, under the existing appointment system, for those with emergencies and healthcare needs, they can't have access to services. Some of them choose to go to the ANE. Others wait for quotas in the next day. I hope we can review the appointment system. With an increase of quota, can we reserve quotas for people who choose to have walk-in services? Can we consider opening the appointment system to everyone 2 to 3 hours before the opening of the clinics so that those who have emergency needs can get access to services and we can make sure effective triage? Also, Wontai-sin is one of the districts with serious aging population problem. There's no mention of the second hospital development plan in this year's PA. Other members and I are very concerned about the situation in Wontai-sin because there is no emergency healthcare services provided in the district. This has been discussed for a long time. I hope the government will look into this and address the healthcare needs and look into building a new acute hospital in Wontai-sin to address and prepare for the healthcare demands in the coming 2 decades to relieve the pressure in Kowloon. Now, children spend more time on electronic devices. AI is the major trend. Electronic devices are indispensable for children. With a longer screen time, children are facing healthcare problems with their vision. More young people are having vision problems. This can lead to cataract and other eye problems and serious complications. This poses risks to public health. This year's policy address proposes setting up an expert group to study the prolonged screen time of children. This shows that the government is aware of how pressing the issue is. I support this initiative. The maternal clinic in Hong Kong provides eye checks for those aged between 4 to 5. Last year, there were 23,000 some children who got the eye exam, and there are also annual free health checks for primary and secondary students. However, these are only preliminary checks. Even for those who have undergone checks, it doesn't mean that they have no eyesight problems, and these eyesight problems may get worse. Some people think that eyes problems may not be significant, but if there is delay to the follow-up services, the eyesight problems of children may aggravate. Starting from 2018 on the mainland, eyesight problems of children is a strategic issue. There are compulsory measures as well as systematic measures. For example, there are 2 compulsory eye checks for each student on the mainland. There is stringent restrictions on children's screen time. For primary school students, their screen time cannot be longer than their class time by 30%. This is to ensure that children have at least 1 hour on physical activities at schools every day. We can adopt a similar monitoring system. For example, we can have a pilot scheme for young people. If they fail to pass the eye exam, we can subsidize them to get services in the private sector to ensure early intervention. We should identify the right approach to protect the eyesight of grassroots students. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the district care teams, housing problem, as well as community living rooms. These policies have been supporting a number of grassroots at the community level. I hope that we can have more discussions about these in this council. We can think about how we can diversify these services so as to benefit more people. I so submit. Thank you. Mr. Stanley Ng. Thank you, Deputy President. In this session, I speak on behalf of the FTU. I want to explore areas about housing and labor protection in this year's policy address. I want to state our positions in these areas. In housing, the government proposes that the target for the coming 10 years is 420,000 public housing units. For the public housing private split, it should be 3 to 7. In the coming 5 years, the overall public housing supply will reach about 180,000. Compared to the beginning of this current term government, we see an increase of 80%. These statistics show that the government is committed and determined to roll out housing. An increase in supply doesn't mean that we manage to address the structural problems. The existing policy focuses on distribution. Distribution of resources is a zero-sum game. Green form and white form ratio will increase from 4 to 6 to 5 to 5. There will be more quotas for people who wish to take part in the white form secondary market scheme. This helps address the needs of different groups. If the overall supply remains unchanged, then we're simply shifting resources from one group to another. We won't be able to boost home ownership rate. So we're simply shifting resources. We want to grow the pie, and on this basis, we want a more equal distribution of resources. Also, the PA proposes shortening the alienation restriction for subsidized sale flats, and there will be a flat-for-flat scheme for elderly people, allowing those subsidized flats without the premium paid to be rented out. This helps revigorate the property market. However, again, we are facing limited resources and we're simply shifting the distribution. Can allowing people rent out their HOS unit ensure that people can live in peace and contentment? The root problem is that we have to ensure a stable supply of housing. We need to focus on developing and producing land. That concerns the Northern Metropolis. I'm glad that the Chief Executive is going to chair the Committee on the Development of the Northern Metropolis himself. It shows the determination of the government. In order to implement this grand scheme, we need execution. In the coming 10 years, there will be 2,600 hectares of spade-ready sites, according to the government. The public needs to learn about the progress. We strongly suggest that the government should resume land in a faster pace. For vacant land and brownfield sites in the new territories, the government should resume them as soon as possible. The government should make use of the tools to unleash the potential of the land in the new territories to address the housing problem. On labor, the government has reviewed the enhanced labor supplementary scheme. For example, the recruitment period for waiters and junior cooks will be extended from 4 weeks to 6 weeks, and the manning ratio of local workers and imported labor will be 2 to 1. The government undertook to step up efforts to combat illegal workers. These measures deserve our recognition. This is to ensure jobs will be given to locals first. Can these measures be implemented effectively? The FTU will keep monitoring the situation. The key is about execution. According to the FTU's report, for sectors with more imported labor, we see a greater underemployment rate for local workers. This might be because after recruiting imported labor, employers switch full-time workers to part-time workers, and this will affect the monthly income of local workers. If there's not enough law enforcement, we won't be able to make sure that the manning ratio requirement will be complied with. There should be strengthened patrols and inspections by the government to ensure deterrence. Also, we have to ensure the quality of local workers. We support the idea of reviewing the Employees Retraining Board. We support the Reemployment Allowance Scheme. With the transformation of different sectors of the community, we have to address the demands of the market. We have to give more targeted support for sectors with higher unemployment rate. We need skilled workers to be able to grasp the current situation of the market in order for them not to be marginalized. Also, we need to address OSH problems. We support the government in legislating to ensure a compensation system for delivery workers working for digital platforms who get injured. There should be more OSH inspections and law enforcement. All these address the needs of the community. Also, the government should come up with a tripartite negotiation system among the employers, employees, and the government. These can help address labor disputes. Overall speaking, there are directions set out by the PA on housing and labor. We urge the government to adopt a new mindset in terms of distributing resources. It should speed up developing land, especially consolidating and developing land in the northern metropolis. This should be the government's priority. On labor issue, the government must step up monitoring and law enforcement for the labor importation scheme. It should enhance the skills of local workers. There should be a collective negotiation mechanism. Strategies must be transformed to effective implementation of policies to address people's needs. We should not only look at the figures, we should have the wisdom to address these problems. We need the determination. The FTU support this year's PAISO Summit. Thank you.
Mr. Lam Kwong. Thank you, President. Since the current term government took office, the government has shown determination to resolve the housing problem, to have enough land for public housing and take forward light public housing and transitional housing projects and eradicate subdivided units. We have seen the government's efforts realizing the vision bit by bit, and we can see that the government is enhancing upward mobility of SDU and PRH tenants. We thank the government for taking on board our suggestions on housing policy so that more can realize their vision of buying their own homes. First, on having more HOS flats, I support the government's initiative for a flat scheme for elderly persons. Many elderly persons who are owners of HOF flats, their children have moved out, they do not really need to stay in somewhere that big. And we have young families, on the other hand, wanting a bigger home. So with this flat for a flat scheme, it will provide convenience to elderly persons to move to smaller flats so as to release such flats for families in need. And elderly persons can get more money for retirement. So this is a win-win for all. We suggest that the arrangements should be extended to young families who have newborns, who have the need to move to bigger flats, or just owners with children who have already moved out of their homes in general, so that more can find homes appropriate for them at different life stages. The government also announced that there will be an increase in the quota for white form secondary market scheme, and the government will maintain flexibility in making sure that all quotas can be allocated. I appreciate these measures. The government should have regard to the circumstances and increase the quota for white form secondary market scheme gradually later. We need to also make sure there is an adequate supply of primary housing so as to alleviate the long-term housing supply gap. The government should also try to adjust the ratio of public and private housing mix, as well as PRH housing and HOS flat mix as a result. And I note that we have the government reversing the trend in housing supply. They now have more housing units available early on in the cycle. We have, say, for green form or HOS flats, they have larger units that are very popular among citizens. If we can have more larger units available to citizens, I believe it will be beneficial. It can also encourage people to live with their elderly relatives and their children. We really need to enhance the appeal of green form scheme. We should incorporate plans of such in the planning of HOS flats. We also need to enhance the design to meet people's needs. As I said earlier, we can see that there is less housing demand. With adequate public housing supply, we can start works in redeveloping public housing units or public housing estates. The policy address said for Mata White Estate and Saiwan Estate, they will be redeveloped, and the government will also explore the possibility of redeveloping model housing estate. So we can perhaps have a rolling arrangement where the government will continuously review which public housing estates that are of a higher building age to be redeveloped. This is also to meet public expectations in this area, and that would provide more certainty in redevelopment of public housing estates. The government will also adjust the white form green form ratio to 5:5 to enhance upward mobility of PRH tenants and to facilitate turnover of PRH flats. It will help more in need to move into public housing. We had, before the delivery of the policy address, many people asking that the tenants purchase scheme be reinstated. When there was no mention of it in the policy address, some have expressed disappointment. I do support the reinstatement of tenants purchase scheme, but then I do note that there are some problems because of scattered ownership. with management. So the government should conduct studies into the management issues of tenants purchase scheme flats at present, and then the government can come up with ways to better management, whether the management should be outsourced altogether, and whether we need to enhance ownership of the owners of tenants purchase scheme units. It is only with analyses that we can meet the actual needs of PRH tenants. We will have a more comprehensive housing letter with the policy address measures. I hope that with concerted efforts we can meet the wishes of citizens to purchase their own homes. I so submit. Mr. Holden Chow, Deputy President. For this session, I will speak in particular on housing, labor, and education. On housing, I note that the government in recent years has significantly increased public housing supply, resulting in a much shorter waiting time for public rental housing. I appreciate the government's efforts. The LegCo recently passed the Basic Housing Units Bill. This is an effective way to deal with subdivided units, I believe. At least it would be the starting point. In the past, I said for public housing, with the increase in public housing supply, it will shorten waiting time for public housing units. This is appreciated, but we need to combat abuse of public rental housing. While we do need to combat public rental housing abuse, the Bureau should practice compassion. When I worked in districts, I observed that there are many cases where residents, for different reasons, may have some difficulties. So the Bureau should be compassionate with households in need. But in general, I appreciate the Housing Bureau's approach, and I also appreciate the Housing Bureau enriching the housing letter. The DAB asked for the reinstatement of tenants purchase scheme, and the government said they will explore the option, conducting relevant studies to explore the different options. We appreciate this. We hope that this comprehensive study can be taken forward as soon as possible. On labor, I thank the government for taking on board DAB's suggestions, especially in relation to importation of labor in the F&B sector and other specific sectors. We do appreciate the government lengthening the recruitment period for 2 occupations from 4 weeks to 6 weeks. We thank the government for taking on board this suggestion. On the importation of labor, it is necessary, but we need to prioritize local employment. This is the premise. If the government, having followed closely the situation, say in the F&B sector, seeing the unemployment rate is still quite high, perhaps the quota should be allocated to other sectors, or there should be a suspension of the arrangements. Often when I worked in districts, we encourage citizens to report illegal workers. And now there is a hotline, so I urge citizens to make reports of illegal workers through the hotline. There's also this whole school health program of the Health Bureau. I appreciate that. It would require, however, the concerted efforts of the health care sector and schools to take forward this program. I also raised a motion earlier to ask the government to encourage children to spend less time on screens, to do more sports so that their mental well-being can be protected. So can we at least have the government conduct some analyses on how much time children are spending on homework, on digital devices, next on anti-scam? Can we have large-scale publicity campaign like such for students' digital awareness, to encourage them to not spend too much time on digital devices and instead do more sports? This will benefit the future generation. I support the policy address. A motion of thanks.